Hey guys, thanks for tuning into the show. Before we get things going, I want to tell you guys about our milestone giveaway that we're doing right now at Fall Obsession. We're trying to grow our social media pages. We're trying to get the Instagram, the TikTok, the YouTube channel all to that 5K mark. We're trying to get the Facebook to the 15K mark. So we're doing a special giveaway with you guys to make that happen with your help. We're going to select not one, but two winners that are going to take home a pair of these Wiley X Jackal frames in the American Sniper Signature Series. It is an awesome, awesome giveaway. These are some really great glasses. I have a pair personally that I wear. I wear it casually out and about. I wear it at work in a very more intense environment and everything where they get put to the test and everything like that. Can't say enough about them. You got a chance to take a pair home. Go to our social pages, any single one of our social pages on any social media platform you are active on. There will be a post pinned to the top of our page for our milestone giveaway, and there will be instructions on there on how you guys can enter to win, again, one of these two pairs of glasses that we're going to be giving away with our friends over there at Wiley X. So don't miss out on this opportunity. It is a good one, and I want to be sure that you guys have a chance to be included. This is normally my time to go ahead and plug those social media pages and tell you guys to go follow along, so even more reason to do so because of the giveaway we got going on. Make sure you are subscribed to that YouTube channel regardless, because we put a lot of great content on the YouTube, including the podcast videos. If you like tuning into our video versions of our show, you can find them on there, as well as tons of other hunting shows, live shows that we do with our team throughout the month, and some live podcasts, all that kind of stuff. You guys can find it all there. And make sure that you are streaming our shows on Carbon TV. Fall Obsession produces 4 different hunting shows on the Carbon TV platform. This podcast, our staff-inspired video podcast series called Couch Chats, is on Carbon TV, as well as 2 different hunting shows titled Texas Dirt and Midwest Mindset. Go check out Carbon TV. FallObsession.com is the hub. That's where you guys can go to find all of our content. It all filters through there. Everything I just mentioned, as well as our online store, our gear reviews, our wild game recipes, our educational videos and articles, how-tos, all that kind of stuff. We cover hundreds of different topics in all sorts of different genres in the hunting and outdoor space. So be sure that you guys are going to FallObsession.com and tuning in to everything we got going on there. No more rambling from me. We're going to get this conversation going. It's a good one. It's an important one. Hope you guys enjoy. You are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
The power lies within that middle ground.
Hunting transformed my life.
I think you have to be built somewhat different.
That Dale Brisby's a super puncher.
It's when you get Pop-Tarts on the next Walmart order. I'm serious.
Because to come into this country and stay dedicated to that, it was pretty awesome.
If it's only for one, then you've done your job.
We have to do what's right for the wildlife, and that's our responsibility as hunters.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast. My name is Sam Thrash. I'm your show host over here. Thanks for pressing play on another one of our episodes. I am flying solo again this week for episode 251, and intentionally doing so. This isn't just one of the deals where I had to come up with something to talk about or just had something random that I was passionate about that day, had a guest reschedule, nothing like that. This episode is very direct and intentional. I've kind of been thinking on it for a little bit right now. I've had some stuff kind of on my heart and my mind that I wanted to bring to the table with you guys, because right now there's a lot going on out there in the world. I'm recording this episode on September 19th of 2025, so a lot's happened in the last couple of weeks this year in the current times. So I want to talk about some of the stuff, some stuff you guys might be able to guess that's on my radar, and those of you that are returning to the show, I'm sure that you guys know or expect, if you will, me to be talking about some wildlife conservation, because if you've been following Fall Obsession and you've even remotely paid attention to what we got going on, you know that the past 12, 14 months I've been on a pretty hardcore crusade in the conservation space. because I believe that if you are a hunter and an outdoors man or woman and you are silent, you don't speak up, you don't try to use your voice to defend your rights as a hunter and an outdoor enthusiast when appropriate in a respectful and professional way, um, putting a good image on hunting in general, then you don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to you. You don't have a right to complain when something is not the way that you like it. I'm not telling you guys anything you hadn't heard me say before, but I wanted to use that to kind of steer me into this conversation because there are some conservation issues on the table, as it seemingly there's always going to be, that got me fired up a little bit that I haven't really talked about on the show. Because that's the other thing. I don't want this to be a recurring thing where I just talk about the same problems over and over again. Certainly there's recurring things that get mentioned consistently, but if you guys want to focus on a specific thing, you can go back and listen to other episodes. And I did pull up here real quick just some of our recent episodes that we've had that kind of focus on conservation. The most recent one, to at least when I'm recording this, is episode 247. Did it less than a month ago with Cable Smith from the Lone Star Outdoor Show. It's titled Conservation Under Fire. You guys can go listen to that one. It's a good one. I'll probably reference some of the stuff we talked about in that one. The last time I did a solo podcast was episode 243. Talked a little bit about a few conservation things in that one. 240, 239, great conservation episodes. Some of that, especially with 240, talking about the public land crisis and the public land sale that was on the table not that long ago. That's a little bit more time specific episode, but needless to say, it's a good one if you guys just want to kind of get a pulse for what's going on out there. So, and then 239, the one before that, we talked about some issues specific to Colorado itself. So those are just some recent ones that we've had on the show that if you guys kind of want to get some more context on what we've talked about recently, you can go back and listen to those. Again, I might reference some of the stuff from those conversations, either my solo podcast last time or the guests that I had on the show to talk about that. But my goal is forward motion. My goal is to keep this thing going and to talk about things that are relevant because, like I just mentioned, if you're not using your voice, then what good are you in the wildlife and conservation space? What good are you as a hunter taking advantage of all of the benefits of being able to hunt, but doing nothing to defend your right and ability to do so, and the right and ability of your kids and your grandkids and future generations being able to do so? So that's where it's important to speak up, and I'm going to talk a little bit more later about kind of what, not just me personally, is doing for that, but also what Fall Obsession is going to do to try and better serve in that regard. So you have to use your voice, and in a way that I have found I need to use my voice has been through this show. And not to make it sound like it's at y'all's expense. I mean, I'm grateful that y'all continue to listen. Our so far 2025 has been the most listened to year of Fall Obsession podcast we've ever had in the 5 years we've been doing this, and I'm very grateful to all y'all for that consistent growth and tuning into the show and finding value in the show. And I hope that a part of it, while we are in the business of entertainment, while I am a podcast host and I am an entertainer in that regard, you guys are finding some sort of value in at least what we're talking about, whether it just be us in-house here like I'm doing today or with the guests that we have on the show. So, and I do have a guest coming up. It'll be in the next couple of episodes. A gentleman named John is coming on the show. You guys might know him on social media as the Public Land Advocate. We got an episode on the book scheduled to record with him. Looking forward to this conversation because he definitely has a very unique presence on social media when it comes to the wildlife and hunting conservation space and advocacy in that regard. And I'm really looking forward to that conversation with him. So again, forward motion, we're going to keep things going. But some specifics that I wanted to talk about now, and this is stuff that has not been mentioned at all on the podcast before, and that is a couple of rules that different parts of the U.S. government are looking to revoke or change or withdraw, such as the Roadless Rule and the Public Lands Rule. And we're going to dive into these two topics. I do want to also tell you guys to please be paying attention to Oregon. This just popped in my head. I need to do my due diligence and actually look it up and see if this is still a thing. But at the time that we did that episode with Cable Smith, there was IP-28 in Oregon that was going to potentially be an effective ban on hunting, titled the Oregon Peace Act. Just looking at headlines, again, I should have done my due diligence before I even mentioned this. It just randomly popped in my head right now. But at least looking at headlines here on an initial internet search, it still looks like this is a thing that is moving forward. This thing hasn't died yet. So educate yourself on IP-28 in Oregon, the Oregon Peace Act, because it is anything but peaceful. It would effectively be a ban on hunting going through the avenue of basically like trying to defend animals against animal cruelty, and hunting, the ethical killing of animals, is categorized within that Peace Act. So educate yourself on that and make sure that when the time comes, we are standing beside our brothers and sisters in Oregon to defend their right to hunt. But I want to talk about these things I just specifically mentioned and the stuff I have prepared for this podcast. And the first one is the Roadless Rule. I'm a supporter of the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, the BHA group. If you don't follow them on social media, you need to be. They are very, very good about posting stuff regularly, just very timely, about current conservation issues that are going on across the country or that are going to affect everybody. So the Roadless Rule, it's been in place since 2001. And the USDA is looking to remove it. It's effectively protecting 58 million acres of American wild and public lands from roads being built through them, and as far as infrastructure coming into our national forests and everything, as far as logging and other things like that would begin to chip away at that block of public lands that we have a right to hunt and fish. I've been corrected on this podcast a little bit. I say corrected. I've gained alternate perspectives on the public land issue a little bit through this podcast. And I'll specifically reference my episode 244 with Aaron Davidson from Gunworks, when he was talking about how, while the public land sale thing was rolled out completely wrong, and Mike Lee has probably overstepped a little bit with that, and he's not doing anything an appropriate way. Aaron at least sees the benefit on, hey, I got this. There's a housing problem in Cody, Wyoming, where he's at, for example, and I have this big field of sagebrush that's useless, that's technically public land, and it falls in that category. Why can't that be houses for my employees, right? There's more isolated incidents like that where maybe there's a conversation to be had, and I can appreciate that. It doesn't necessarily have to be a cold, hard, fast, no, not 1 acre, not 1 inch type deal. But when that's what they try to swoop in and do and apply this to every acre and every inch, that's when there's a problem. So this Roadless Rule, and just doing my own research on it and looking at some of the own statistics that I've been able to pull up on it, it's protecting areas of our public lands. It's protecting clean water sources that feed communities. And national forest out there, there's already like almost 400,000 miles of forestry roads in the United States. Like all of this access, all of this area and everything. And they're obviously wanting to repeal the Roadless Rule so that they can expand that into areas where it's not already. It's I don't have the stat in front of me, but it's like 88 or 90% of wildfires, are related to some sort of human cause, I believe is what I researched. And a lot of those are starting close to a road, and yet we're looking at this like it's not potentially going to cause more forest fires when we're putting, combustion engines and stuff into these forests and everything that, and people, just the human factor on top of that have the potential to, cause damage or cause, a more massive effect on our land and our wildlife. Not to mention just, I'm not trying to be a tree hugger here by any means, but I challenge this with why? Why do we need all of this right now, all of a sudden? And then we can look at that from the standpoint of the other one that I mentioned, where the Department of the Interior, this is more recent than even the Roadless Rule, has announced its plans to rescind the Public Lands Rule, which this is a little bit more interesting. I wasn't very well educated on either of these prior to seeing BHA post about it, doing a little bit of research on it myself, and then prepping for this episode. But the Public Lands Rule, come to find out, was actually a rule that came into effect in the Biden era, as far as the presidential administration, and the contrast being that the Trump administration is looking at this from a standpoint of, they believe that it is an outsized priority, is how they worded it, an outsized priority on conservation that blocks energy production. And basically the Public Lands Rule, it ranks conservation and preserving public land on the same tier as, like, our energy sources, our overall, infrastructure development and that kind of stuff. That's my understanding of it. And it basically prioritizes it very high on the list as far as we need to maintain this as America. And now being able to rescind that, what that would do, like right now, it's essentially just preventing this unchecked development and expansion into some of this stuff. And right now, all of this is coming across to me as they are trying to open up all of this potential to further develop and utilize American soil. Hey guys, sorry to cut y'all off from the conversation. We'll get back to it in just a second, but first I want to tell you guys about Hoot Camo. Hoot Camo is one of the best camouflage brands out there for the blue collar hunter. The prices, you can't beat them. The patterns are extremely versatile. They work in so many different environments. I have worn Hoot Camo hunting whitetails, hogs, and turkeys down here in the hardwoods, the mesquites, the scrub brush of Texas. I've worn it in the flatland plains of eastern Colorado hunting mule deer. I've even worn it in the mountains of central Idaho hunting elk. It works in so many different places. It is extremely high quality gear, extremely warm, holds up well against the elements. You cannot beat it. Go to hootcamo.com, use the code FallObsession15 on your next order, no matter how big or small it is, and check out everything that Hoot Camo has on there for you guys. And this is where I'm going to take the conversation, because like I've done, you guys can Google like what these rules do, how they came about, what they protect, why they're important. You can form your own opinions about them, and I encourage you to do that. I encourage you not to just take my word for it as your blue-collar Texan that's sitting down here trying to educate myself on it and talk to you guys about it. But I encourage you guys to go and do your own research on it and to look it up and form your own opinion, right? Because I'm conflicted personally. And I don't want to get too off into the weeds on politics in this podcast, but when I've said it before on the show, when we talk about wildlife conservation, hunters' rights, public land, when we start talking about all these things, this is where politics is relevant to hunters. And I'm not with the Trump administration on this one. Like, you guys, if you've listened to the show long enough, if you know me, you probably know, where my political loyalties lie as far as which way I lean. But my challenge is, why do we need all of this? Why is this so important right now? And what is wrong with a reevaluation and a reutilization of the infrastructure that's already in place? I understand that America, that we want to grow our country, that we want to grow America, and that there's needs for X, Y, and Z across the board. But why does it have to be public land? Why does it have to be access? Why does it have to be our forest? Why does it have to be all of these things? Because I feel like, at least from my perspective as an American citizen and a voter and a hunter, that there might be a different way to go about accomplishing these goals. Politically, I don't know. I just feel like they have to be looking at this, or have to be considering the fact that the amount of people that you are going to aggravate, or, excuse me being crude, but you're going to piss off about this, about taking away public lands, access, all that kind of stuff. You can take this all the way back to the whole Mike Lee deal. Like that, those are essentially your supporters. A majority of those people that spoke up over the public land issue, they're conservative-minded people. They're voters for Mike Lee and Donald Trump in that regard. And yet, you're over here stirring the pot and continuing to do that, because this isn't like this is not a left-leaning extremist group, organization, push, anything like that for these two things. These are stemming from a quote-unquote conservative political administration. The Trump administration specifically called, in reference to the Roadless Rule, they specifically called this rule uncomplicated and burdensome, being an obstacle to economic growth and forest management, and saying that they need more flexibility for local management and wildfire prevention. And there's the wildfire prevention thing on, well, how are you going to prevent more by putting more stuff and people in there that can cause problems? That's just my perspective. Like, what are we doing here? And I have in here a side note also that Idaho and Colorado are actually excluded from this roadless rule, because they already have state-specific rules in place in that regard. So, going back a little bit to the political side of this, this being coming from a quote-unquote conservative administration, the USDA, it's run by the Secretary of Agriculture, and the Secretary of Agriculture is Brooke Rollins. She's actually a Texas native down here. She came up through Governor Rick Perry's administration years ago. Like, conservative-minded individual that is running the department that is making this push for a president that is conservative-minded. Then you have the Secretary of the Department of Interior, Doug Burgum, former North Dakota governor. He was a businessman before he was that. He's undoubtedly looking at this from a business-minded standpoint, and I understand that. But this is more to us than just a product. This is more to us than a product or a space that is either over or underutilized in one way or another, right? This is our land. These are our forests as Americans. And I get it. You can argue that not every person out there is going to set foot on every acre of public lands or national forests that are out there to be had. I get it. But how far are we going to let this go? It is one push after another. And we talked about that with John Stallone from Howl for Wildlife in episode 240. When we were talking about the Mike Lee situation and everything, on how if this fails, which it did, there's just going to be something else that comes back again and again and again. They're just going to keep pushing. They're just going to keep pushing the envelope with various things. And I asked Cable Smith in 247, I asked him, like, hey man, in your opinion, have these issues always been here? Or is all of a sudden things just blowing up? And there's a little bit of a combination to it. You have the social media effect now in the modern era, where people are able to, information flows more freely. You're able to find anything you want on the internet, right? So all the information, everything that's going on is so accessible and readily in front of everybody. But there is so much more of all this being pushed. There is so many more attacks on hunting. And I feel like I talked at the beginning about how, 12, 14 months now, it seems like we've been doing a heavy focus on conservation. Man, it never stops. We've talked about the wolf reintroduction. We've talked about the mountain lion bans. We spent some time on that last year in Colorado. We've talked about John Stallone came back on the show and talked about how the push that is to stop the wolf initiative in Colorado in 2026 and how that was shaping up. That was several episodes ago. Then we have specific issues going on in Colorado, specific issues going on in Oregon that are front and center. We have the public land deal. Now we have the roadless rule. Now we have the public lands rule. And it is constant and it is exhausting. It is absolutely exhausting having just to navigate with all this and keep up with all this. And that's why I'm grateful for organizations like HAL and BHA that do keep up with all this and make it as easy as possible for people to stay plugged in. But golly, man, it is never ending. Hey folks, if you guys are in the North Texas area like I am, then you need to go to Bear River Archery and Pro Shop in Van Alstyne, Texas. Justin and the guys up there have an incredible operation set up. They will take great care of you and all of your archery needs. They are the official bow shop in North Texas of Fall Obsession. I love going there, and I'm picky. If you guys know me, I am very selective on who I let work on my bow. I will let Justin work on my bow. They do great stuff. Check out Bear River Archery and let them know that Fall Obsession sent you. And that just goes back to the importance on everybody to know what is going on and to not get overwhelmed by it and just turn your mind off to it and just live in your own happy little world. It is exhausting, but we have to be plugged in, because the second that we back off, the second that we aren't plugged in, that's when it all goes away. That's when they win. And I say they, I'm not talking about anti-hunting, animal rights extremists. I'm talking about anybody on any side of the fence, any part of the political landscape that threatens our rights and our abilities to hunt and enjoy the creation that is out there for all of us to have. I don't know. I'm conflicted a little bit with some of it. Like I mentioned earlier, folks like Aaron Davidson, I've had some conversations with Johnny Mack from Soul Seekers about it because he has some unique opinions. I'd like to get him back on the show in the near future to talk about some of it. But there's some contrasting perspectives on there on, okay, there's got to be an ebb and flow. And I don't want to sound like I'm an entitled outdoorsman who thinks that nobody should ever be able to touch any piece of it, any piece of our lands. That's not what I'm saying. I understand that there can be some repurposing and reutilization for some of it, but it has to be in a strategic and more localized manner. These huge blanket across the board changes, rule implementations or revoking or bills, these legislative measures that encompass so much, that's where we lose. That's where we lose our rights. Local, more isolated efforts, as long as the local piece of that is involved, the local communities are involved in that, I can support that. I can support that because the people like Aaron up in Cody, the people who are boots on the ground, who see it with their own eyes, who understand the pros, the cons, and the in-betweens on all of it, they're the people who need to have a voice at that table. Not some politician who's sitting in an office thinking about, well, how can I make good on promises? How can I make my constituents, my donors, my supporters, all this kind of stuff. How can I make them happy? How can I make I'm not going to say it. How can I make the world a better place? So it's tough. We have to hold the people accountable that we can. We have to use our voices in the right way. I've said it already. When we don't, that's when we lose. That's when you lose the right to complain or to speak up when you don't use your voice, when you aren't there for your other states, your other problems, the issues that are popping up consistently. When you pick and choose what you want to be involved in, or what you want to pay attention to, that's when stuff falls between the cracks. And next thing you know, perhaps that place that you went hunting once isn't there anymore for you to go hunting on because people stopped caring. I've talked about the interesting dynamic in which side of the political fence these two rules specifically is stemming from. And that's why it is more important than ever to make your voice heard. The movement that we saw for the public land crisis a couple months ago was flooring to me. It was amazing to see that many everyday blue-collar hunters and outdoors men and women, outdoor enthusiasts, folks who just enjoy recreating in the outdoors, all come together and stand up and speak up for what they believe in. And it had an impact. We saw the results. There has been a public feedback period for this roadless rule, and at the time I'm recording this podcast, the 19th is the last day to submit your feedback on it. So by the time this episode's out, that period will have already closed. But please remember that the public hearing window for you to send something in on the public lands rule is still open right now, at least at the time we're dropping this episode. You need to get in on that. You need to go to places like Howl for Wildlife's website, BHA's website, that's the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and you need to use their action tabs. They have action tabs on the website where you can click a few buttons as far as this is who I am, this is where I live. It pulls up your list of representatives that are relevant to the issue. It already has the email typed up for you. You can customize it if you want to. You can write your own if you want to, but there's already one on there. And all you have to do is click send. If you wanted to do it the laziest way, it takes less than a minute to make your voice heard. It has never been easier to make your voice heard. And we saw that with the public lands issue. We saw people stepping up and using their voice for good, representing hunting in a professional, respectful light, and at the same time putting pressure on these people who make these decisions to make the right decision. And it had an effect. And every time this happens, we have to be at that table. We have to be sending those emails. We have to be making those phone calls. We have to be advocating to those senators and these people in these public offices that some of them are elected, some of them are appointed. But if they're appointed, normally the people who appoint them are elected. We have to hold these people accountable. We have to tell them why we think it is good, bad, or indifferent. It can have an impact. It has already proven that it can have an impact. And so I encourage you guys, if you didn't say anything about the roadless rule, I'm not going to point fingers. I'm not going to call you out, but I'm going to tell you right now you need to go and say something about the public lands rule. Even if you don't hunt public lands. I don't hunt public lands in the state of Texas, at least. I hunt private in Texas. I'm a private land hunter exclusively. I've hunted public land in other states. I value public land hunting. I value public land access, and I have so many people that I'm friends with and that I know that that's all they do. That's all they enjoy. And I'm like, even if I don't hunt public land primarily, I'm here for them. I'm here for y'all. I am here for everybody tuning into this podcast that I know or don't know that hunts public lands. That's why I step forward, because it's not about me and what I specifically take advantage of and enjoy or how I hunt. It is about the greater hunting community and what we have available to us, what we have a right to as hunters and outdoorsmen and women to enjoy in this country. So make your voice heard. Take the opportunity to speak up and to use your voice for good and for what you believe in. Don't sit down. Don't be quiet. Speak truth. Hey guys, Trophy Edits is a Fall Obsession podcast partner. We all have mounts on our walls that represent a significant moment, a significant harvest in the woods for each and every one of us, and photographs can do the same. I'm sure you guys have pictures from years past, hunting with loved ones or being in the woods with family and friends that also represent those big moments. And what Trophy Edits does is they showcase those moments for you guys. Just absolutely make your pictures explode, and to the level that you guys can put them on the wall and also have that memory forever represented in your home, your office, your man cave, whatever it might be. Give Trophy Edits a chance to do the work for you guys. And again, they make those pictures just absolutely awesome with their professional team of editors. So go to Trophy Edits website. The link is in the podcast description. That lets them know that you guys came from us. And use the code FALLOBSESSION at checkout to save you guys some money. And that's going to take me a little bit into the last thing I'm going to talk about. And it's an issue that I've talked about before on the show. And I'm going to have a little bit of a unique spin on this one. And that is kind of taking this into social media. Because I just talked about how social media has put so much of these conservation issues front and center in front of us, like right in our faces, for us to form opinions on. And it's a good thing. It also lights the antis up. Like, it gives them a quick and easy way to get all keyboard warrior on us and, fire up those laptops and just get to work, right? And we see that. We see that on a regular basis. People getting on our pages and spreading hate. I find a little bit of humor in it, and kind of what I wanted to talk about specifically was, you guys may have seen a couple weeks ago, we put together a reel. I read a guy's comments that he posted on a picture that Fall Obsession published of myself with what is to this day the biggest wild boar that I've ever killed. And I shot him with my bow in Texas, 300 plus pound pig. The photo was posted on October 2nd, 2022. So almost 5 years, or not 5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And randomly, I guess it just popped up on this guy's feed somehow, and that's the post he started firing off comments about. And you guys can go look at that post, you can go look at that reel, you can read his comments, and it is obvious from the very first one that there are no signs of intelligent life here. Like, there is nothing but somebody just angry, upset, and trying to talk smack and talk down to a hunter. Which, first and foremost, I believe that any anti-hunter, any extremist in that regard, that thinks that they can go to a hunting page where there is nothing but hunters and outdoorsmen and women following that page, and nothing but hunters and outdoors people commenting on that page and liking that post, and they think they can fire off a comment and make a difference in the world, they're naive. They're naive anyway. We all know that. They just want to watch the world burn. And they get angry, they get emotional with this stuff, and they can't articulate anything in a respectful way that would even make anybody remotely consider their side of the argument, at least. At least when you bring emotion into it, that's when you are going to start losing. When you bring your personal feelings and emotions into it and you let yourself get worked up over stuff like that, that is when you're gonna start losing the battle. That goes both ways, and I say that to caution hunters on when we interact with these people, when we send letters and emails and call our legislators and our representatives and everybody who has a voice at these conservation tables, or when we interact with people on social media, we cannot get emotional about it. We have to remain factual and use science-based data to support our arguments. We can be personal with it. There's a difference between personal and emotional. We can be personal with it as far as sharing our own experience and how this is relevant and relatable to us, whatever the issue might be, but we can't get emotional about it, because when you start getting emotional about it, you start losing your own personal control, and you start opening up the cracks for somebody else to start taking away the validity of your argument. That's the mistake that the antis make. They come through the gate on social media in the comment section emotional and angry and ticked off, and they want nothing more than to make you pay for the crimes that you have done to animals and the whole world, or whatever they want to come up with, right? They lose all credibility when they do that. Hands down. We've all seen it. We all know it. We've told them that. And I tell folks when well, let me back up. Before I get too far off into social media, let me just wrap up the point and reiterate that we have to be professional and represent hunting in a ethical and factual and respectful light when we're talking to people who make decisions at the table, at whatever scale that is, or when we're interacting with others. Because when we are interacting on social media with others, there's people watching who aren't hunters, who aren't anti-hunters. They are somewhere in between. They might be interested by hunting. And those are the people that we do it for. That's why I comment and interact with these anti-hunters whenever they fire up the Fall Obsession social media pages. Because I know for a fact I will not change that person's mind. No way in the world I'm going to. But the person's mind who I can change, the person's mind who I can sway, is going to be that person who's in the middle, who's curious, who doesn't know yet, who is watching and trying to learn and figure out what this thing called hunting and outdoor lifestyle is like, or what it is. Their curiosity's peaked. They want to know more. And let me tell you, example conversation in that regard. You have an extremist, an emotionally unstable individual who is commenting on social media and getting all fired up about this stuff and just throwing trash cans. And then you have a hunter who is debunking every comment, every word, every theory with factual and science-based information. They are doing it in a way that is respectful. I say respectful, sometimes a little witty, because we deal with these people, right? So there's a little bit of wit that typically comes into it, at least speaking for myself. But we're not just tossing trash cans back and, saying the same things to them. Because literally, these people get on there and they say things like, I hope that somebody kills you the same way you kill these animals, and like legitimate, terrible things like that. These are terrible people. We're not saying those kind of things to them. We're not throwing those same trash cans and dumpsters back in their direction. There might be a little bit of wit, like I said, that comes into it, but we're able to hold our own in these conversations. And that's what the influenceable person is going to see. They're going to see somebody who can't control anything and is just angry, and they're going to see somebody who actually knows their stuff and is put together. And I guarantee you, if they want to pick one of those two people to send a message to and ask questions, who do you think they're going to send questions to? They're not going to send questions to the angry person that's all pissed off. They're going to send questions to the person who is put together and articulating things at least in a way that they can understand and that makes sense, right? So that's why it's important to hold our own on social media. I talked about that reel that we put out earlier, a couple weeks ago, about me reading those comments. And I interacted with this person. Again, I interacted with them not for the sake of changing their mind, but for the sake of the person who's influenceable and on that middle ground. I do put a little bit of wit into some of my comments. Can't help it. Probably not great for the guy that manages the social media pages to, be a little bit witty in that regard, or maybe it is. I don't know. But anyway. That reel that I made was longer. We cut it down when we published it. But in that reel, the stuff that got cut out, I gave 3 reasons that I do that. One of them was a humorous reason, being that, I got a little bit of a devious side sometimes as far as why I interact with these people. The other reason was what I just talked about. I interact to provide good information for the influenceable person in that middle ground, right? And then the other reason that I took out of there just didn't fit the video very well, and I don't know, just the way I articulated in the reel probably wasn't great. I'll try to do better here, but my mindset is when I have somebody who is commenting and just absolutely hateful stuff and everything, I'm going to interact with you. I'm going to carry on a conversation with you long enough that it shows the world your true colors. I'm not going to point a finger at you and say, you are dumb, or you are an idiot, or you don't know what you're talking about. But what I can do, and what, not even what I can do, it's what this person will do to themselves, is I can intelligently and intellectually interact with them long enough that they show the world that they're dumb, or they're an idiot, or they don't know what they're talking about. They self-destruct on their own. And I've said it before, especially in the podcast specifically about this subject, that once you start hitting them with the factual, the science-based stuff, they start losing their ability. Any legs that they have to stand on start getting swept out from underneath them. And next thing you know, they just stop commenting. They go away because they don't have anything left to argue. They've spread all the hate that they can spread. You have not reacted to it. It has not had the effect on you they were hoping it would. You have maintained your composure amidst it all, and now they ain't got nothing left in the tank. They got no choice but to go away and hide in the shadows. And again, that speaks volumes for the person that's reading these comments. Social media is a nasty place. We are a company based off of media and entertainment and use social media daily here at Fall Obsession to spread our message out, to put content out, to put it in front of you guys. But it is a nasty place, and there are some people out there who are absolutely hateful and who despise you for any and everything. There's so much stuff out there on the internet. There's so much content out there. There's so much information out there. There's so many opinions out there, and you could take any piece of that you want. You could Google, why are apples bad? And you'll get results on why you shouldn't eat apples. You can Google why are apples good, and you'll get results on why you should eat apples, right? You literally can find the information you're looking for on the internet. Now, how far it gets you beyond that, how far it actually will back your argument, that's to be determined, right? That's not necessarily a green light every time, but social media hate just absolutely irks me. And there's a line for me. There's comments that we'll interact with, that we'll leave up on our pages for the whole world to see. There's other stuff that we will take down. And if you come at us or come at somebody or something that we post about, and you absolutely just are, I don't even know how to describe it. You are just bringing pure evil to the table. I got no place for that. I'll delete your comment. I'll block you in a heartbeat. I don't care. You are coming to a hunting page with hunting content, and if you don't like hunters or hunting content or hunting pages, you don't have to be there. If you don't like this podcast, you can turn it off. You can make a choice not to listen. That's been a topic a little bit in the news lately, given the events on September 10th with Charlie Kirk. And I didn't really want to get into this in this podcast. It is a relevant event in our country's history, I believe. I'm not going to talk about where I aligned with Charlie's way of thinking. Again, you can probably make your own assumptions about me. But literally, a dude that you could choose to listen to or to not to, if you didn't like what he was saying, right? And he got killed for it. It's absolutely despicable. And we posted something on that day, that evening, about it. I felt compelled to do that. Not because I was trying to take advantage of a circumstance. Absolutely was not trying to do that. But I felt like it was a pretty dark moment for our country, thinking that this is what it's come to, regardless of what you think of that man or what he talked about. Somebody felt like it was worth killing him over, instead of just simply accepting that he believes one thing, I believe something else. these two don't mix. I have a choice to not pay any mind to them, but to be that just filled with that much hate that you do something like that, just it boggles my mind. Boggles my mind every time. And even then, we post something on social media about him, just from the standpoint of, our hearts go out to his family and our country and everything right now, because this, like, he's a husband, he's a father, he was an influencer of many, like, many people respected him and followed him. And again, to drive home the point that there's no place for this kind of hate in our world. And even on that post, guys, we had people commenting on that post, F this guy, F you guys for posting this. Just, I was floored by it. I was like, holy cow, man. Like, go look at it. The post from September 10th. There is nothing in there that is either supporting or, going against his way of thinking. It is simply just what we tried to make a tasteful and respectful post for the events that had happened in our country that day. And we still had people showing up with their pitchforks and their torches ready to burn the place to the ground, both him and us, just for posting that. And I got no tolerance for that. There's one thing to be like an anti-hunter and to not have the intelligence to know to stay away from hunting pages and to just get on there and start being a keyboard warrior and firing it up with everybody. I'll fire right back. But when you are legitimately condoning evil on our page, nah, ain't gonna fly around here, man. Not at all. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. Hope you guys are enjoying it. There's so many different places that you guys can tune in to Fall Obsession Podcast, and one of them is the Outdoor Call Radio app. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV, he created an app that you can download on any device where you can stream hunting shows and podcasts on a loop every single day. Our show, Fall Obsession Podcast, plays on that loop on Mondays. That's the same day as our new publications on the other apps. And there's also tons of other hunting shows and podcasts on there that you guys can listen to. Go download the Outdoor Call Radio app today. It is free. You can start streaming immediately. And be sure that you follow their Facebook page, because Outdoors Dan does some live radio shows throughout the week. And even if you are not local to those radio stations, his broadcasts are shared on his Facebook Live. It's Outdoors Dan and the Outdoor Call Radio app. Go download it today. So I've been rambling about all this for a while. And I always get to this point where it's like, all right, I guess I've said everything I need to say. And hopefully there's folks out there that find value in it. I consistently get good feedback from you guys that tune into our show about these solo podcasts. And again, I try to make these episodes intentional with what I was talking about. Personally, having talked about this for 45 minutes, give or take at this point, I don't know I don't know, in my mind, I feel like I stumbled a little bit through the Roadless Rule stuff, and I certainly believe that I could use some more education myself on some of this stuff, but it's on my heart, it's on my mind, it's important, and again, I encourage you guys to go look it up for yourselves, and to go form your own opinions about this kind of stuff, and what's going on in our world, in our conservation space. Please continue to represent hunting in a professional and respectful way. Challenge those who are out there opposing this. Challenge people who are attempting to take away the things that you find value in, the things that you believe are our rights as hunters to maintain. Challenge them, support organizations that challenge them, but please do not be the kind of person who is making these vain and nasty, even borderline evil comments and accusations towards other human beings and other people. We're all people at the end of the day. There's people in this world that I don't like. There's people in this world who don't like me. At the end of the day, we have differing opinions, and that's what it comes down to. We can live our lives our our different ways, and we're probably not going to change each other's mind, at least not directly in a one-on-one setting, right? But just like other people have their right to free speech, have their right to advocate for things, you do as well as a hunter. And I encourage you to exercise that. I encourage you to be involved. I encourage you to pay attention. And just because maybe you're like me, maybe you live in a southern state, maybe a lot of this stuff that's coming down the pipe doesn't affect you. Maybe it's not relevant to you, or you don't feel like it is, right? I promise you it is. I promise you that every piece of this in some roundabout way is going to come back, and it is going to impact you. Whether that's later on down the line, you decide that you want to put in for an out-of-state hunt, and that can affect you from the standpoint of land access. That can affect you from the standpoint of how many animals are on the landscape, allowing a certain number of tags or licenses, non-resident hunting capabilities, all of these kind of things. It can affect you in so many different ways. Predators. More predators on the landscape can affect the number of game tags that you have in years to come. There are so many trickle-down effects to every decision that is made out there. And if you live under a rock, if you don't pay attention to it, if you choose to turn off podcasts like this because you think it doesn't affect you, stop. Because it does. Because every piece of this affects you, and eventually it's not just going to be a roadless rule affecting mostly western states and places like Alaska and stuff like that. It's not going to be a mountain lion hunting ban in Colorado. It's not going to be an Oregon Peace Act. It's not going to be a public lands rule or a public lands sale. It's going to be in your backyard one day. And you are going to be looking around for all the people that are going to be coming to your aid, because now your direct ability to hunt and fish is being threatened. But where were you when theirs was threatened? Where were you when the greater hunting and outdoor community was under attack? Were you sitting at home, or were you speaking up? And let me tell you, we've talked a lot about technology. In today's day and age, speaking up has never been easier. I'm telling you guys, less than a minute to fill out an action tab on How for Wildlife or BHA websites or other organizations that have stuff similar. Could not be easier. Could not be easier. Pay attention, stay involved, stay plugged in, and use your voice. I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for listening. I've said all I need to say for this one. And until the next conservation episode, until the next time that we have some new issues to bring to the table and to bring to relevance, thank you all for listening to another Fall Obsession podcast, and I will catch you guys on the next one.